So this next video will be an excerpt on global depopulation again, and it'll be on chemtrails. Chemtrails. And I've talked to a lot of people about chemtrails, and I've observed them myself. But it is a very, very difficult topic to talk about without actually sounding like a conspiracy theorist. But I will play this little clip here.
China's People Liberation Army Air Force contacted the Indian and Nigerian intelligence officials about the presence of these U.S.-operated Ukrainian aircraft, amidst growing concern that the United States was spreading biological agents in the Earth's atmosphere, which some Chinese officials believed to be an attempt to commit mass genocide. Okay, now here's what's interesting. The idea of these Antonov 2024, most people probably don't realize how big they are, but they're capable of carrying about 100,000 pounds of an aerial-type mist that can be set out through pipes in the plane's wings. And we know them in the West as chemtrails. But what's important to understand about this is there are papers written and absolutely published by the globalists talking about this is the only effective way to deal with the useless eaters. Now, obviously, useless eaters are anybody other than them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that should make everyone furious. So now leading into the scientists that have been systematically executed, suicided, and basically murdered. The reason why, and this is something, you and I can do a show, George, and people will not get the reason why these scientists are being killed. Because many of them worked in special compartmentalized intelligence working on bioweapons.
Nobody knew them.
Nobody knew that, and nobody knew all of the work they were doing. Just recently, just 5 days ago, one of Canada's leading flu experts on H1N1 died mysteriously after contracting supposedly H1N1. Now, there's something wrong with that. When a 38-year-old man in the prime of his profession, by the way, the man is a genius, respected worldwide, was a genius, and when that sort of thing happens, you know me, I go into, there's more to the story. I think it's critical that people understand. Now, I have a link on my page that you've already stated, www.stevequayle.com, for all the Coast listeners that will list each and every one of the scientists. Now, it's not totally inclusive, but I believe that, we're as close to being inclusive as we can get and trying to put this into perspective for anybody, because, again, we're talking about a University of Ontario professor, and this man is very, very interesting. His name was Keith Fagnou, Fagnou, and he died Wednesday in the intensive care unit at the Ottawa Hospital 3 days after he was admitted. Now, he had no underlying medical conditions according to the Ottawa Public Health. But when I started understanding that his specialty was this, now these guys are used to dealing with biosafety level 3 and 4, okay? So I think what most people need to understand in the bioweapons development program, this is critical, you have shadows that monitor your progress, your compliance, and I don't know that this doctor or anybody else who's been murdered knew that their shadows were there, but there are unique ways of taking out these gentlemen. First of all, when you've got experts that are absolutely the most well-written, well-published investigators and scientific minds of their time, his specialty was H1N1.
Jeez.
Okay, now why would you want to take him out? Simple. Because, and somebody says, well, you can't say he's murdered, you don't know that. Well, on your show, when we talked about Dr. David Kelly, the head of Britain's porting down the Ministry of Defense and their biological weapons program, the official story was, he committed suicide, then his body's moved. To make a long story short, now they say he was murdered. So the reason these
scientists... Well, they said he committed suicide, but there was no blood by him, right?
You got it. And the deal is that it's easy to claim that he died of H1N1, but to my knowledge, and I do not have access yet to the autopsy if there is one or was one.
And by the way, I meant they found him with his wrists slit, but there was no blood there. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the bloodstain evidence was in a different location than his body was, and eyewitnesses said they saw people moving his body, and he was in an unnatural position, propped up against a tree. I mean, there were so many, how should I say, disingenuous investigative statements that someone said this is the most botched murder homicide and the most botched cover-up, and the investigation that went on was a total farce. But getting back to the scientists, the reason that these gentlemen and ladies are being systematically executed is because they're the ones that could not only point the finger to say, wait a minute, this is a bioweapon. The minute it would be announced that this is a bioweapon, what's the first thing that will come to your mind? Who did it?
Who did it, of course, and why? Who benefits?
Yeah, and if you could track who did it, do you think maybe the word retaliation might come in?
Maybe.
Yeah, and see, this is the thing that's critical for people to understand. The elitists hold the world's population in contempt. They're not content to starve them into submission. They're not content to basically blast them into submission. They have to have a bioweapon that can either be ethnically specific, race specific if you want, that can be geographically specific. They have designed the weapons. And again, when I wrote the book Breathe No Evil a decade ago, you and I first spoke about it on your show, people could not believe that it would even become a relevant aspect of their life.